So some of the first few IXLs are fairly easy. Like if you see what is the ratio of triangles to hexagons, you'll just put a 1:1, and it's self-explanatory. So I won't bother with this one. I think everyone will get 100% probably on this. So let's try a different one. So let's go, sorry. All right, so grade 6. Okay, so doing the same thing using a fraction. So stars to circles, how many circles are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And how many stars? 3. So fairly simple. The first few ones probably you won't have any challenges or problems. Let's try the third one, R3. There are 19 empty parking spots and 31 full parking spots in the garage. What is the ratio of the number of empty parking spots to the number of full parking spots? So read this sentence, that is the question, right? So they're asking you to put the empty before the full parking spot. So number of empty parking spots would be 19. So your answer should start with the 19. 2, the number of full parking spots. So that would be 19 as your first part, and then you go to 31, which would be right here. And again, should be fairly easy to get these answers. Like, let's try this one. The sixth graders at Malia's school got to visit either the science museum or the history museum. 4 students picked the science museum and 39 students picked the history museum. What is the ratio of sixth graders who visited the history to the number of sixth graders who visited the science? So now what's coming first? History. So we'll look for the history number first. Okay? So 39 should appear in your answer before the 4. Right? So that would be right here. So fairly easy. I'm sure everyone will easily navigate through these exercises. But let's try maybe the next one just to see what's happening. And you can obviously pause this as you go along and try to only watch the sections that you're working on. That way you don't need too much of you're not watching too much content. You're watching just the relevant content to the IXL. So which model represents the ratio of 5 hexagons to 6 hexagons? So count 5 hexagons. Where do you see those? In the first one we see 4, in the second one we see 5, and then you've got 6 stars. So we'll mark that and we'll get our answer. Okay, then we have identify equivalent ratios. So we want to look for something in comparison. This one is where the exercises start, the real exercises start. So these will be where you want to concentrate. So 3 is becoming 18. So how can we do that? We can multiply 6, right? So think multiplication and division over here. And then the second number should also multiply by that same multiple. So 1 times 6. So if you see a consistency in both, then it's an equivalent ratio. So here I'm going to say, are the two ratios equivalent? Yes, they are. Okay, so look for that idea. Now let's look at this one. So 4 is becoming 20, right? So 4 becomes 20 times 5, right? 3 becomes 15. And you've got to multiply the same multiplicative factor. So the same multiplication for both values. So 3 times 5 is 15, hence they are equivalent. So let's mark that. Okay, let's try another one just to make sure we are getting everything. So here 9 is becoming 18, right? The first with the first, second with the second. So times 2, times 2. So again, equivalent, right? Okay, are the ratios equivalent? So let's check what's happening. 2 is becoming 12, so that's times 6. 1 is becoming 10. So if I did the same thing times 6, then this is where we end up getting no as our answer. So R5 is this exercise. Okay, let's try another one. Sorry, I went one step ahead. R6, write an equivalent ratio again. Now, similar to what we did in the previous exercise, 1 is to 4, 9 is to something. So we are multiplying by 9. So we should multiply by 9 over here, and we end up getting 36. So we'll plug that in. And we'll get our answer. Then you have ratio tables. So you'll see a consistent pattern, and this is where graphing ends up happening, and you'll notice these things in graphs and tables, and then you'll start plotting things. So that's where that big picture starts, okay? So what do we see over here? We see that 5 is becoming, look at each column. So 5 is becoming 10, then 15, then 20, then 25. So it's like the 5 times table. 5 times 1, 5 times 2, 5 times 3, 5 times 4, 5 times 5. You'll see a similar pattern on this side, but it's the 4 times table. So 4, 8, 12, 16. What comes after that? 20. Let's plug that in. So again, similar type of question where we've got the 4 time table on the left side and the 5 times table on the right side. So what should the last value be? Again, it's a 20. So let's plug that in. And this should be fairly easy too. It's just going through the tables. Okay, let's try R8. Equivalent ratios, word problems. Are these ratios equivalent? Again, you could write the working. And I said think multiplication or division. You can either go from the 18 to the 6 or work 6 to 18. Whichever method you feel is easy for you, use that, right? So there's not one specific method. So if I came from the 18 to the 6, I'm going to divide by 3, right? So divide by 3. Now, is that consistent throughout? Yes, it is. So they are equivalent. But the other way could be I'm going from 6 to 18. So then I'm multiplying 3. And then 5 to 15, multiplying 3. Remember, this circled part should be consistent for both cases. If it is not consistent, then it's not an equivalent ratio. So let's mark yes. And I'm sure you'll get through with these. If you need any assistance, just ask. Okay, let's try R9, unit rates. So now we are on rates. So 10 laps in 2 days. Now the 2 days is becoming 1 day, right? So how can we make 2 to 1? We can divide 2, right? So if I divide this by 2, it becomes 1 day. So similarly, I should divide this by 2. So it gives me 5, right? So let's plug in 5. So we are finding out the rate, how fast or slow things are moving. Like when you're in a car and you do speed, you're actually talking about the rate, okay? So 30 slices from 2 cakes, right? And then on the other side, we have dashed slices per cake. So what are we doing here? So 2 cakes is again becoming 1. So divide by 2. So let's divide the slices by 2. So we end up getting 15. And you can use a calculator or you could just do it mentally. It's up to you. 24 deliveries in 3 hours. Now we are dividing 3, right, for the hours. We want per hour. Per hour means every hour, right? And remember, per in math refers to division. So this is your pace or your rate. So 24 divided by 3 would give us 8. So let's plug that in. 8. Okay, let's try the 10th one, and then I'll make another video for the rest. Equivalent rates. Okay, so now we are looking for type the missing number to complete the proportion. So proportion is another word that is synonymous to ratio, or it's yeah. So it's similar, but it's called a proportion. So it's a part of a ratio, right? Okay. So 10 plants in 2 rows. So 5 plants in dash rows. So what are we doing to the 10? Dividing it by 2, right? So let's divide this by 2. So same process, nothing new. Let's plug that in. This will be a 1. Submit. Boom. Done. So these are the first 10, and then I'll post the other 10 or 12. Okay. Again, as a reminder, just do 3 or 4 every day, depending on your pace. Try to keep it enough that you get content done, but don't overwhelm yourself. I know it's a tricky time, and please ask for assistance, take help from faculty, and we'll get through with this.